everybody, and welcome. Today we're going to be learning about a new hand balance pose. In yoga, hand balances are referring to any asana or pose where we hold our body weight in our hands. So for example, a handstand is a hand balance. But there's many other unique hand balances in yoga. And so the one we're going to be working through today is called crow pose or kakasana. Crow pose is generally, from all the teachers I've worked with, the first hand balance most teachers teach their students, but it also is considered an intermediate to advanced pose. So be aware, this is definitely a pose we're working into and working up to. Your body and your mind will gradually become used to the pose. It may be something that you don't attempt immediately, but by following these different drills, these different exercises I show you, your body may become strong enough, more balanced to attempt taking flight in our crow pose that I'll be showing today. So I have a few props that you may want to use. I have my 2 yoga blocks right here. These can be very helpful, especially in more intermediate to advanced asanas. And if I was in a yoga studio right now, we'd have access to something called a yoga bolster, which is like kind of an oval sized pillow. Most people at home don't have that. So I'm just showing you that you can also use just a normal like throw pillow or pillow from your bed as well as your prop. Okay, the first thing I want to do is I want to demonstrate crow pose, and then we'll talk about different methods of getting into it, different exercises to get us ready for it as well. Okay, so this is something you can just kind of watch and learn if you've never seen crow pose practiced before. So crow pose begins from a tabletop position. From this tabletop position, I'm going to come onto my toes, sitting kind of in a yogi squat per se. Now I'm keeping my elbows pointed back. My hands are gripping our mat, and I'm practicing what's called ustabandha in yoga, which is using our fingertips to act like a brake. So rather than having our hands completely flat on the mat, I'm creating almost like a suction cup hand holds onto my mat. That way, as I press into my mat, the tips of my fingers become like little brakes for me. So as I enter my crow pose, having warmed up, which we'll walk through shortly, I'm going to slowly press my hands into the mat, lifting up onto my toes, tucking those knees nice and close into my underarms. Eyes looking ahead, shifting my weight onto my hands, taking flight in crow pose. Now, again, like I said, it's a beautiful asana, but can look very, very intimidating and challenging. So let's begin in our tabletop position. And let's make sure we warm up our wrists. So as we have in previous sessions or previous videos, I'm gonna flip my palms, fingertips pointing back. I'm just gonna ease back, stretch out all the muscles and tendons along the back side of my forearm, easing back and forth. Now, if you're beginning to practice or attempt crow pose, you can do these wrist warm-ups as long as you'd like. I may do them for a shorter period for the video and time's sake, but you're welcome to hold these stretches longer if you feel like your body's asking for it. I'm now gonna point my fingertips out to the right and the left, and I'm gonna just shift my weight onto those hands side to side. And last but not least, I'm going to slowly sit up. I'm going to just stretch my wrist with my hand, both sides. And then I'm going to flick my wrist slightly. Flick, 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 and then circles. Both directions, both sides. You can do 5 to 10 rolls, 3 to 5, whatever feels comfortable. I'm going to go opposite direction for both sides. Good. Okay. Now, we warm up our wrists, but we also want to warm up all of the upper body, meaning the shoulder, the scapula muscles that all surround our scapula. So to do that, I'm just going to simply move into a nice cat-cow from my tabletop position. Back and forth through cat-cow can definitely feel really good and help open up that thoracic spine. When we do crow pose, you should have seen that I really round my spine to get that lift off, which means I'm using these same movements that I'm using particularly in cat stretch. Okay, now from here, I'm going to show a few drills that are going to help get our body, our shoulders, our upper body strong enough to enter our lift off into crow pose. So if you notice you're feeling like your body weight is very heavy on those hands, these are the exercises you're going to want to work on, maybe instead of working on the lift off into crow pose. And then after a few weeks of strength training, strength building, doing these exercises, you can once again attempt flight in crow. So you should always listen to your body here. Okay? So one great exercise that we can do, as I set our pillow off to the side, is our scapula push-ups. Pushing that ground away on my toes. I'm going to perform just almost like a cat stretch here. And then go down into a cow stretch, pulling the shoulder blades into the spine. Up and down. Up and down. Up and down. One more time. And down. Now, all of that back and forth is creating a lot of weight in my hands, which is good to strengthen our arms and our wrists for the hand balance. But it's also utilizing all those muscles in the back that help stabilize the shoulders, that require the stabilization is required for our crow pose balance. Okay? Now, a second exercise also from plank would be holding our plank from either our toes or our knees and shifting forward and back. Forward and back. Belly button nice and tight, pulled into the spine, beautiful tight core as I go back and forth. After going back and forth anywhere between 5 and 10 repetitions, you can rest, roll out those wrists. Same goes for our scapular push-ups. Cat-cow style, pushing away, pulling back, 5 to 10 repetitions, 3 to 5 times. Resting in between, rolling those wrists. Now, those are strength drills for crow. So those do not need to be practiced before actually practicing crow pose. They're what you can do if you need strength building leading up to it. So just make a note of that. We're going to do one additional strength building exercise, and it's going to actually help teach you how our positioning is in crow. We're going to lay on our back, knees bent, head nice and flat on the mat. Now, crow requires a large amount of abdominal strength. So I want us first to just tighten that belly down, push that lower back into the mat. We're going to pull our knees into our chest, nice pointed toes, hands reaching up to the ceiling. I'm going to ask like the ceiling or the sky is our floor, and I'm going to do a reverse or an upside down crow by bringing my knees into my triceps, holding here. Now to keep those knees and those hips kind of tucked up and under, I'm having to really use those deep abdominals. So I want you guys to see that again. This is my start position. This is my end position as I hold.
holding for 5 seconds or 3 breaths, give or take, and then releasing controlled. Repeating that 5 to 10 times. If you want to make it harder, you can also, as you release those legs out and back in, forming a low boat as we extend. We hold, we breathe. Notice I'm doing my Ustabandha hands here. We extend out. We pull in. We want to make it even more challenging. As we extend out once again, we can find ourselves in full boat. And then back down, pulling in. Okay, so you have lots of options here. They take a double knee to chest stretch to relax and release. Good work. So now let's work on our flight. Let's actually come back into our tabletop position. Now, because this is a hand balance, we always want to think about safety first, meaning there is always the risk that as I come onto my hands, my body weight could shift forward, leaving me face planting into the mat in front. So this is where our pillow becomes our beautiful safety net. Don't get me wrong, it's still not going to be comfortable if you happen to lose your balance and fall forward, but this is going to prevent a lot more serious injury, things like falling and hitting the chin or falling and hitting the nose on a hard surface. You'll notice it also brings the ground a lot closer to me, meaning that if I were to tip forward, I'm not falling nearly as far, meaning I'm not getting as much speed and momentum to hit the ground harder. I never say that to scare anyone. It's more just to be very realistic and as safe as possible to protect our bodies and treat our bodies with kindness, practicing ahimsa, which we'll learn about in the future. Now, another way we can enter crow safely is by utilizing blocks. For some, they like to have 2 blocks at the shoulders. For others, sometimes it's more comfortable to have blocks stacked on one another so our forehead can rest on top. That's what I prefer when utilizing my blocks, so that's what I'm going to show. Now, as we begin, we can start by finding our malasana. That's our yogi squat. That's sitting nice and wide, nice and close to the ground. Tucking our elbows underneath. We want to get our elbows as far underneath those shins as possible. Now for a beginner entrance, I tell people to do almost what's like a frog hop, just to begin to feel some weight in those arms. Shifting here, see I can even rest my chin or my forehead on the block. It just starts to kind of show your arms how heavy that body may feel in the hands. So you can see I'm kind of lifting one arm at a time, or one leg at a time, putting weight in those hands. Now for many of you, this may be the final spot for us. Like we may not want to take it any farther. From this point, it might begin to feel a little scary or a little like our bodies feel very heavy. So let's talk about how can we start to feel like we're lightening our bodies. And this is where we're going to shift from our frog position, making sure we have our Ustabandha hands. And like I said, when we did our first frog position, see how wide my knees are? I want to take my knees from the outside of this arm and I want to shift them, tucking to the inside of my arm. So that's where we begin to see more of the traditional crow pose. So I'm even going to walk those feet in a little bit. And I want those knees to be as close up to the elbows as I can, or the upper arm as I can. A lot of people make the mistake where they start with their knees here, and when they go to fly, their knees slip down. So the higher my knees are, the more space I'm going to have if they want to slide down a little bit.
Also, I'm demonstrating this series in shorts mainly because it is common for knees to slip on like lycra leggings. So like for a lot of the female yoga wear, the leggings can be really slippery, and so it might be more comfortable for you to begin in like shorts where you can actually get skin on skin contact. It's just something to think about. Okay, so I just want to, that's like very real talk in the yoga world. Like that could be an inhibiting factor if your leggings are kind of like very slick. Okay, so like I was saying, fingers down, hands down, knees tucked in under those arms as high as we can get them, and then we can begin to just work towards shifting forward. Now watch, I'm going to use my forehead on this block just to kind of create a tripod headstand. Doing that once again, maybe getting a little bit of lift off. Scooting back just a bit. And that can, again, just make your body or your mind feel a little safer to not go forward. Once you feel comfortable without the blocks, having the pillow in place just in case you do go forward, remember that we're wanting to center our gravity over our hands. So to do that, we have to allow our bodies to shift forward. Naturally, to protect our head and neck, and because we were taught to somersault probably as children, a lot of people will have a tendency to want to tuck their head. Your body will go the directions your eyes are looking. So if your eyes are looking down between your hands, you're going to go forward. So watch how as I fly like a crow, we want to think about the head lifting, eyes and gaze looking farther out ahead. So I may begin looking at the ground, but as I move into that liftoff, I'm going to look forward. Okay, we don't want that body flat. We want the abdominals nice and tight. Watch what happens as I tighten my abdominals here. They're going to help pull those legs up. That's what we want. The more you have engagement in those abdominals, just like when we did the exercises laying on our back, the lighter the body's going to get. The abdominals are going to help fight gravity, lift that body up, make our body lighter on the hands. So this gives you a lot to work with, a lot to play with on your mat. Again, please, please, please always choose safety first and have fun with the poses. Even if you don't reach full flight immediately, remember that this is a process in yoga. It's a journey, and part of the challenge, the fun, what we want to experience is that our poses are going to develop over time. So this week, I hope you enjoy practicing. Feel free to leave comments or suggestions on this video or on any photo submissions to allow me to personally clarify any of those questions you may have. Okay? Thank you so much for watching. Have fun flying this week.